Welcome to the next edition of the Executive Digest. I have Gib Olander here and his company, Go Product Management, and we're going to talk about something that helps people do their podcasts. So I'm really looking forward to that. And let me turn it over to you, Gib. Please introduce yourself, your company, and then I'll ask you what your AI strategy is.
Super. So my name's Gib Olander, and I've spent my career building and scaling software products from early stage startups that have exited to 9-figure companies that really have restructured around this whole idea of a product mindset. Right now, I'm leading a company called Go Product MGT, Go Product Management, Go Gib Olander. I'm really clever. Sneak that in there. And one of our first products that we're bringing to market is called the Podcast Growth Agent, which really is we're helping teams install what I call the product OS AI. So it's a product operating system for the AI era. It's a framework that blends AI agents and human collaborations so companies can move faster and with more clarity. And then on the podcast growth agent side, it's just our own proof point. Right? We have to actually build and show that we can deliver things using these tools as opposed to just talking about them all the time. I think that right now, as an executive or a leader, it is the time to go back to your roots and be a builder. And so I think we all have to lean in and actually use these tools to build every single day to really understand what works. And so for Podcast Growth Agent, we built an AI agent that helps podcasters grow. My wife has a great podcast, Redesigning Health at Home. Her and her partner put that together, and mainly because of their great work, but I think the tool has helped them with some automated workflows and some repeatable growth loops. They've got now a top 10% performing podcast in the country and world. Our North Star for both of these things are pretty simple. We just have to build tools that give people freedom to focus on work that matters.
That's great. Do you want to say a little bit more about what the core functionality of the product is?
Yeah. So for Podcast Growth Agent, it's really simple. It works on a per episode basis. Essentially, you take a podcast, an episode, and we've got two ways that you can upload that content into the tool. You can do it through an Apple URL if you've already posted it, or you can just upload an MP3 file. We then transcribe that and then run it through kind of a vector database. And we take a look at absolutely every single word that you use in your tone of the episode. And then we take a look and we find ways to grow the semantic understanding of the episode, because we believe that people are drawn to the topics, not actually the words, and the way people search and the way that people discover new content is often around keywords. So we want to extend those. So for instance, if you are in the East Coast, you might wear tennis shoes. In the Midwest, I wear gym shoes, right? So we want to find the best way to extend those keywords in your titles and in your metadata so that it's easier for you to do that. And then we also go out and do a deep dive into some other small communities. So we don't want to find communities that are the biggest for you. We want to find small niche communities where you can introduce yourself to. So we find Reddit threads, we find Discord communities, we find small Facebook groups that are semantically talking about the exact same content that you are, so that you can then introduce yourself to that group of people, because we figure you've got birds of a feather flock together. It's a great way to grow your audience. And then we pull out some quotes and some tweets, and it all happens through a variety of agents that work in the background. You get the entire plan put together in about 90 seconds.
Great. I did want to correct you on one thing, Gib. Don't say tennis shoes in the Northeast. We say sneakers.
Yes, that's the right way. You got it. But you totally understood where I was going.
Completely, but you got to be careful, because if you get that wrong, then the entire Northeast will stop listening to anything that you say after that.
Thank you. I think it's the West Coast that talks about tennis shoes. And by the way, my favorite example of the whole thing is there's this weird thing in Wisconsin where they don't drink out of water fountains. They drink out of bubblers. So like they all have a bubbler in their high school, or by their local gym, they got a bubbler that they drink out of as opposed to a water fountain. That's my favorite, like, semantic word example.
Excellent. So, what are the big dynamics and risks going on in your industry?
Yeah. I don't know if this is an industry as we talk about from podcasting, but more from the Go product management side of things. I think the biggest risk is really confusion, not AI. I think everyone is rushing to do AI without a clear data culture or operating system. And so they're focused on outputs versus outcomes. They've still got organizational design that's built for the pre-AI world. they aren't really focusing on data excellence. They haven't built the data culture to where they're actually thinking of the data that's involved in their business as a product that needs to be picked up and utilized by other departments, people, and things. And then all of that comes to winners are able to align data, people, and purpose. And so AI isn't dangerous, but disorganized adoption is. And I really think the real risk that people have is that they're rushing into a culture and they're rushing into AI without a culture of data excellence. They don't have a clear product operating system, and their teams are built all around outputs instead of outcomes. So the companies that are going to win as we go forward are ones that align data, people, and purpose, and they'll treat AI not as a tool to automate tasks, but a way to remove bottlenecks and unlock creativity.
I think that's becoming more and more evident. I just wrote in my newsletter, I wrote an issue on that specific theme. I should put a plug for the newsletter in here now.
Tell me give me a little snippet of what you talked about. I'm
It's
interested.
called The Execution Edge.
All right. And you were
But
talking about data in there or organization structure. What was kind of the key takeaway?
it is that that there's often inauthentic and incorrect and low quality conversations in a lot of the unstructured data, both the way people are writing and how they've been communicating, and upgrading the conversations about how things are communicated. And in my particular ballywig is around how they talk about risk creates a much richer data set for then leveraging AI because it will scale whatever's there. And if it's mediocre, then you just get a lot of mediocre.
Yeah, I've been lucky to take a class out of Stanford, leadership in the AI world, I think it's called, or something like that. And it's an intense course. And so much of it is around that same idea that you're bringing up there, Adam, which is that it's data excellence is really where the beginning of all this starts. And many companies, data has been an idea, but it hasn't been executed against as well as they'd like.
Well, I wanted to take a little switch back to your memory lane because you have run and been an executive in large organizations and managed hundreds of people. And I want to get your secret for what makes a high performance team.
Yeah. I think it's a great question. And yeah, I've led teams of hundreds of product managers and hundreds of developers. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I would say it comes down to this. High performance is a byproduct of clarity and rhythm. So high performance teams start with why. It's always been something that's been in my mind. I don't know if you've ever read that book, or there's a great TED talk where he talks about the golden circle.
Oh, Simon Sinek.
Yes, Simon. Yeah, good. I couldn't draw his name, right? Start with why. I think that's a fundamental key component to every high performing team is that everyone should understand why they're doing work, not just what they're doing. Again, that's the idea of outcome over output. So what we've done is we built an entire structure around this idea of toolkits, not just goals or KPIs. Those are important and those are in there. We want to measure them. But we put every pod or group together and they all define their vision, their key responsibilities, their product tenants, their priorities, their projects, and they update that every 2 weeks. Now, sometimes they don't change much. And then on a quarterly basis, we look at our strategies, right? And so we look at our visions 3 to 5 years out. And that's maybe even too long nowadays, but your group vision has to align to the vision above it or to the visions and the visions of each side of it. They have to share some of the same DNA. Your strategy has to be laid out. It can't be much longer than 18 months. And even in 18 months is a pretty long strategy. You break that down into a series of things like a now, next, later, and never within that. Classic product management stuff. I know you know this stuff really well, Adam. But you then lay that out with your product tenants, your key responsibilities, and your priorities. You don't do this to create micromanagement. You do this to create freedom. Because once you have this stuff actually written and documented, especially in a world of AI, you create the freedom for scale to start to happen. So people can be empowered to make decisions so that people can actually get into the same rhythm. And then we found that the more teams, whether they're in product development or in marketing or in legal, that you can get into a 2-week cycle, the flow really starts to happen. There's this idea of flow state, and I like to break it down into two different components. There's hands-on keyboard work, and then there's hands-off keyboard work, right? And what so often happens in an organization is one group of people are hands-on keyboard, the other group is off planning, doing hands-off work, and then they need to work with each other, and so they interrupt with each other, and nobody gets things done because they're clashing in the moment in time. And so as you start to get the entire business into this 2-week rhythm, using really common agile principles like stand-ups and sprint planning and perform and reviews, you create a natural cadence where you know that on Tuesdays teams talk to each other and that they've got open discussion space and they're doing prioritization and they're discovering customer pain points. But then on Wednesdays, they're actively working, hands on keyboard and headphones on and getting stuff done. So again, I think high performance teams comes from clarity and rhythm, and you can build tools and processes to manufacture that across an entire organization.
Excellent. In my work, we talk quite a bit about a hierarchy of context. You can avoid the micromanagement if you just keep those visions aligned to each other and everyone's pointing in the same compass direction, and let people self-organize from there. I love your phrase, keep hands on keyboard, hands off the keyboard, and that's wonderful.
Thanks.
Okay. What do you do? What are your secrets on identifying and mitigating risk on your projects and your operating organizations?
Yeah. The best way to manage risk is to make it visible early. I have an old adage that I learned a long time ago: bad news doesn't age well. And I heard it from, I forget who the keynote was, but there's a great keynote speaker at a conference where he was an admiral or the top level of the Air Force, and he used this line within his key. And really, if I broke it down, it was, I'm gonna find out the bad news eventually. Like, it's gonna bubble up to me. And I get that you want to be empowered to fix it and that you think you're going to be able to solve the problem and you feel like you have some risk. But if we've created a space where it is okay, that there is no such thing as a mistake or a failure, it is just an opportunity to learn. If we think about all of that as feedback loops, then it creates the opportunity. The key to a feedback loop is that you get it, you measure it, you respond, and you keep going through it. And so you need to create a culture where everyone is thinking about everything we do as an experiment. You need to create where we visualize and see the information as quickly and as often as we can. Risk isn't the enemy, but blind spots are. So what we want to do is we want to set our rituals up, right? So every 2 weeks we review our now, next, later, or never, right? Things that have come in, things that are come about. We do want to use bots and AI tools now to help mitigate that and to help bring some really smart information that are mining information for us, that are bringing stuff that we may not see. We want to have a quarterly planning session. Right now, if something takes more than 6 weeks to get out the door, 3 sprints, the business is going to change its point of view. Like, it's got to be fast. So every quarter you've got to do some planning. You've got to have that hands-off keyboard time where you're actually diving in and learning, what do we need to do about the business? We need to force continuous prioritization and reflection, and then we got to communicate. And again, bad news ages poorly, right? I'm going to find out about it sometime. You don't know what the rest of the organization knows and what they have at their fingertips to solve the problem. So don't be scared of sharing it. We've all made a decision that didn't turn out to be the right decision. Everybody in business has led something that they made the best possible decision they could with the information they had. And then with a little more information, another better decision becomes clear and more obvious. I have not read your book yet. I'd love to. What's the big takeaway that I could dive in and, or that's maybe related to that idea of risk?
You're living on a curve of ever increasing cost. It's much cheaper to deal with stuff up front than after it ships to the customer. And what screws projects up are late surprises. And so, how do you organize and change and build a culture and structures and practices and behavior that cause blind spots to be revealed early where it's less expensive to deal with it? And that involves shifting urgency from the back end panic to the front end.
Love it. Yeah. The old measure twice, cut once.
Excellent. All right. So, when teams are failing, what do you think are some of the key root causes?
Yeah. This may be a little controversial, so maybe not quite to the hot take space, but I think most deadlines are really just missed conversations. In my experience, miscommitments are almost never come from lack of effort. They come from misalignment, unclear expectations, just put out fear. People are hesitant to show early work because they don't feel safe failing in public. So they delay learning, right? Again, that feedback loop, right? Like they're sitting on their bad news. They don't know the answer. They feel insecure. They think they're supposed to know. They have that whole, oh, what's it called? Imposter syndrome, right? Oh my gosh, I'm the brilliant engineer. I'm supposed to know how to do this. No, you're inventing something new. It's really hard. We expect you to have to take time, but you don't have to do it yourself. So you've got to find the conversations to keep moving so that we get learnings in there. One of the things that we like to always talk about, and I mentioned this just a minute ago, we either win or we learn, right? If we can get that culture throughout, that can go down to the smallest little bit of work, right? What are you learning by the task that you're working on today? We also think that it's really important, and I think this is not, that I think a lot of teams struggle with this, is that they don't break milestones into small enough chunks. They all want to get to this bigger thing, but there's all of these learning moments. And so I've found, and we talked about this just a minute ago, 3 to 5 sprints, so 6 to 10 weeks. If you don't have a pretty substantial milestone or learning moment within that time frame, you're gonna miss your deadlines. You're not gonna deliver organizational changing things. You're just not. It doesn't happen. So you've got to create a small structure that has a shift in accountability and momentum, because you can't fix what you can't see. So we have to make the learning visible, and we have to create, again, transparency, accountability without blame. I think, again, most deadlines are missed because of missed conversations.
This, we either win or we learn. I'm so stealing that, Gib. It's brilliant. So well done.
I think I stole it from somebody else as well. So I feel bad for whoever first said it to me, but I have adopted it.
You know what they say, Gib? Amateurs imitate, professionals steal.
I like it.
All right. You've given us so much great wisdom, but now we're going to get the official executive hot takes. So let's hear your wisdom.
Yeah, I just wrote about this on my LinkedIn. So I try to post something on LinkedIn around these areas once a week. And this week it was, this is the title. And so it's where my thinking's at right now. But AI doesn't replace people. It just replaces bottlenecks. So if you think about how your data flows through your organization, if you can find where it's bottled up, that's the place that you want to apply AI. And then as I take that a little step further, I don't think AI replaces people. I think it's humans with AI. I think that the executive of tomorrow is an orchestrator of humans and AI agents. I like to use the word truth because I think it's a great way to form a prompt, and you can think about your agent. If you give an agent this structure and then you give people the ability to work with multiple agents, you've got this idea of a troop. And so a troop is a task, a role, an output, an objective, and a perspective. That is almost by definition what you're expecting them to do. And if you use those tools that we talked about earlier about in the product toolkit, about visions and strategies and responsibilities and tenets and priorities, and you store that alongside your troop framework, now as an executive, you've got the ability to actually orchestrate an entire team of high performing agents that can actually drive things forward. So I believe that the next version of the org chart will have AI agents on it, or it should. So again, I don't think AI replaces people. I think it replaces bottlenecks. And it's are you developing your org chart to where you have the ability to build, deploy, train, and manage agents on a large scale? Because I think that's the future of our work.
That the TROOP acronym is brilliant. And thank you for sharing that. I think that's a great perspective that represents this month's insight into where AI is going. Because last month's insight got dated very quickly, and we're getting a better understanding of how this should fit in the organization. Unfortunately, we're not getting it fast enough, but this is the stuff we'll sort out. And I think what you just described will be very helpful for folks. So thank you.
Well, just like you talked about, Adam, we've got to be okay building in public, and that's what I'm doing here, right? And I've got to get feedback loops quickly. So part of this will age out, and there will be a new perspective around the corner that we may look back at this in 6 months and say, what was Gib thinking? But I think the fundamentals that we're looking at are going to hold up, and are you don't have to be in analysis paralysis. I think you can take action on some of this today.
Excellent. All right. So now, what are two blogs, podcasts, books, articles that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. One's old, really pretty old, but I think it is central to the current theories around how to even make your organizational design. And that is Jobs to Be Done from Theory to Practice by Anthony Olick. Jobs to Be Done has been around for a long time. Really an interesting framework. What I really love about it is that it's all around outcome. It is people don't hire software, right? I think one of the old cliches in it, you don't buy a drill bit, you buy a 1/4-inch hole, right? You want the outcome that's there. That's why you do it. And if we get all of our product pods or groups really designed around the outcome that a customer wants to have delivered for them. So your customer, what do they need from you? That's the job to be done that they're hiring you from. And this book gives you a lot of theory that you can take it all the way to practice around how you can pull that design thinking, that workflow together, that outcome. And I think with agents today, it is more important than ever to have empathy and understanding of the job to be done that your customer is hiring you for, because they don't really want to know how the sausage is made. They just want the thing to work for them. They want the result, and they don't want to have to play and press the buttons, and they want to be able to go see it and understand it, but they just make it work. Make it work for me. I used to be a video game guy and I don't know if you've ever played video games, but there's a video game called NFL Madden. And this is a really kind of crystallizes my view on software, and I think it ties into Jobs to Be Done. If you get a Madden game, the amount of configuration and customization you can do is incredibly impressive. You can do everything from set prices of the popcorn sales to designing your own plays to making your own players and deciding how fast they run and what color their shoes are. And all of that configuration is incredibly fun and interesting as a power user. However, they also have a play it now button. And the day you buy the game, I believe 95% of people, the first time they get the game, all they do is hit the play it now button. They want it all set with smart defaults. They want all the natural configurations. They want it on a simple, easy button. They want to be able to have 45 minutes of enjoyment, or however long that game is going to take. The job to be done is entertain me and make it fun. And I don't want to, they haven't earned my investment to set the uniforms and to build my own players and to set my own schedule and to set the popcorn prices and do all those things. So Jobs to Be Done is, without Jobs to Be Done thinking, you might not ever put that play it now button in the box to where you can open it. So to me, that's a really important book and an important concept that's old, but really relevant. The second is there's this group of folks called Reforge that do a lot of product management related stuff. And they've got some people there that are just so smart. And there's this guy, Andrew Chen. I think it was Andrew Chen that wrote it. But there's an article called The Adjacent User Theory. And the adjacent user theory is the best product management article I've ever read. Everybody that's ever worked for me is so sick of me sending it to them. It's the kind of article that you have to read a dozen times to really get all the nuance out of it. But essentially, the way I've interpreted it, your product or your service needs to solve a very specific job to be done for a very specific market. And you need to be able to do that to where you get an 8, 9, 10 NPS score out of it. It needs to be bulletproof. It needs to be nailed down. And then once you've nailed that core down and you've got a core user and a core job to be done solved, you now have an actual product. And then what you look for is the next adjacent use case, right? So it can either be the adjacent use case to be new features that you're solving for that existing user. It could be the next user over in an organization that you're going. And then you keep expanding and growing your footprint through the adjacent user theory. And each time you build off the foundation that you have and you dig even deeper to make that next layer bulletproof and 8, 9, 10 NPS score. And then you have the right to earn to go to the next one. So many products, I believe, come out of the gate with feature bloat and they never nail any one particular job to be done to an incredibly high successful level, and they don't ever get traction because they don't ever earn a true loyal user that creates a viral loop or some virality. So the adjacent user theory talks about all of these things in a much better, more scientific and classically explained way, but that's one of the things that I've taken out of it, and so I think everyone should read it.
Wonderful. Okay, are you ready for the surprise question?
All right, bring it loose.
What is your favorite vegetable?
I do like vegetables, and I go back and forth through a few. I do keto a lot, so I find myself with a lot of cauliflower because you can do a lot with cauliflower, but I don't think that's going to make the list. I'm going to go with Brussels sprouts. I think it's tough to turn down some well done Brussels sprouts. That's probably where I'm going to live.
Good. Do you have a favorite preparation?
Yeah, I like the air fryer. I like a little olive oil, salt, the salt, pepper, garlic with a little bit of olive oil. And then I like to cut up a little bit of bacon and mix that in there. And maybe a little bit of vinaigrette at the end to sweeten it up just a touch. And yeah, I think that's the way to go.
And balsamic vinaigrette, of
Yes.
course. Yes, of course. All right. That is wonderful. And we'll put in, if you have your favorite recipe, we can put that in the description as well. But Gib, thank you so much for this time and for sharing your wisdom. I think you're one of the great thinkers these days, and I'm glad you are sharing it on this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time, Adam. I really enjoyed it.